All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 11 o'clock Central European summertime, and I welcome you very warmly to today's live session within the SQL Data Spaces Dialogue. And today our topic is barriers and opportunities for developing a data sharing strategy. My name is Thorsten Huelsmann. I'm the CFO of International Data Spaces Association. And as you might know, International Data Spaces Association is focusing on sovereign data sharing. And this is why we are facilitating these data spaces dialogue. It is already today the 7th edition of this dialogue. And in the past, we had very remarkable inputs and discussions on, well, exactly the topic, data spaces dialogue, sovereign data sharing. And in the last edition, for instance, we had some very interesting insights into the Spanish debate on data sharing. Today, we have 3 renowned experts, and what is common, all of them are from Italy. And well, I'm very happy to welcome Nadia Scandelli from Cefriel, Davide dalle Carbonare from engineering, and Alberto Riccabone from Avio, Aero. Hello, all 3 of you, and nice that you have time to discuss with me today.
Good morning,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Scott.
Let me maybe start just with the first very small part, 1 of 3. This is an introduction, and it will be boring that I will introduce you, and therefore maybe Nadia, please let our participants know who you are, what you are doing at Cefriel, and maybe also what Cefriel is.
Yes. So I'm trying to share my screen so that I can share with you some slides that I prepared for the event. So in the meanwhile, so you should be able to see now my screen, correct?
Yes, we see it in the presentation mode. Very good.
So good morning. My name is Nadia Scandelli. Thanks, Thorsten, for the invitation today. I'm the head of the Smart Factory unit of Cefriel, so I'm leading all the activity related to the Smart Factory domain in Cefriel. And who is Cefriel? So Cefriel was founded in 1998 by a university, company, local administration. Our mission is to promote the collaboration and the sharing of knowledge, data, and processes among all the stakeholders in the society. So the research, economic works, and so on. Cefriel is focused on digital innovation. So we deal with everything that is concerning to the data, how data are created, are managed, are analyzed, visualized, and shared among all stakeholders. And we make these in different domain, research, education, innovation, and all over the world, because we have both national and international projects. So we really support the strategic choice of company operating along the entire innovation cycle, from the ideation to the business value. From 2019, Cefriel represented the Italian hub of IDSA, and actually the community is growing. So there is some members that are you see in the slides, and others are coming. So the community is really growing, also because the data sharing and the data strategy topic is really growing in terms of awareness and importance here in Italy. What we do in Italy, like for the activities as a hub, so we organize webinar, dissemination events in order to support the raising of this awareness and this knowledge about this kind of domain and topics. We also organize technical courses for members of the association in order to explore from a technical point of view the IDSA architecture and component, how this component can be used within each company to support the data sharing and the creation of data spaces. And then, of course, we support the research and innovation project, because it's not just talking, but we need to bring to reality and to the market IDSA ecosystem and component. So let's go to start the topic of today, of the dialogue of today. What is the sharing of data, which is the status? I'm now sharing with you a perspective from SMEs in Italy that are parts of our ecosystem and with which we work every day. What we are seeing now, we see that there are obstacles in the sharing of the data. What does it mean? That everyone wants share data but do not want to share data. What we see is that going into the details of these obstacles, data are usually accessible by customers. So for companies, it's easier to get data, to give data to their customers. So because they see that customer needs to access this kind of data about how the product works or additional information and so on. But there is a lack in the sharing of data with all the other stakeholders, in the ecosystem. So with the data with producer, for example, our supplier, and so on. So this part of the sharing of data is more difficult. And also we see that external stakeholders are not able to offer services based on collected data. So at the moment, it's just the company that is getting this data to provide some services based on this data to their customers, but these data are not available for other stakeholders that could be beneficiary of these and can create and provide services on top of this. So which are the needs and goals that we have collected talking with the companies here in Italy? There is, let's say, a need to perceive the real value of data services. At the moment, sometimes speaking with SME company in our ecosystem, they say, okay, but I'm not making data. I'm not selling data at the moment. So it's really hard for them to understand which is the real value of offering and building services based on data. So there is also a need to increase the knowledge and the awareness of the benefits coming from this service. This is really important, not only within the company, but in the supply chain, because one of the pain that they are saying to us is that yes, I would like to share data with my supply chain, but the others are not do not see any benefit in this. They are not giving to me any data or instruments. Another point are the tools. So they need tools and methods to support the creation of secure digital supply chain, because otherwise they will build a custom solution for the specific supply chain for the specific sharing with these stakeholder, maybe one of the supplier and another method, another tool for another supply. Yes, they are digitalizing the supply chain, but it's not a uniform sharing of data. And of course, there will be lack in security, in trusting and everything. So they are not creating really data spaces, but are creating digital solution for sharing data one-to-one or one-to-two, maybe not really a big data space. And this is another point, standardization or customization, because every small company say, no, we are not able to use these big tools that are for big companies. We need something built for us. And this, again, is another point. They really need to understand what can be used by them or not. Another point is to transform the data and information in insights. So how the data could be transformed in services. Okay. Then there is which are the technical challenges. So these are the needs and the goals, but then coming to reality, what is which are the technical challenges? IT silos, management of data, definition common processes, guarantee the security of data exchange, guarantee the IP. We are talking with small company, so they do not have any IT department very big. They just dealing with the servers and running Office and other program maybe. So really, when we talk about data strategy, data sharing, they say, okay, this is rocket science for us. So it's really difficult. So there are technical challenges and awareness challenges. So awareness and benefit challenges, because it's not really clear to them how to achieve, how to define a data strategy, which are the benefits, which is the cost behind a data strategy, and which could be the benefit if they implement not alone, but within their supply chain. So this is my my presentation, and I put on the table a lot of topics and challenges, and now I give the word back to you, Thorsten.
Yes, thank you, Nadia. No, very good. I mean, thank you for sharing these insights. And basically, I understood that that these barriers and opportunities are somehow contradictional on the first view, but on a second view, it is to overcome, well, to overcome them. And this is a little bit, I always describe it as squaring the circle, because everyone wants to use the opportunities of data sharing. But when you really say, okay, now share your data with your whole supply network, then, oh, yes, but I want to own these data. And like you also mentioned, well, to secure IP has to do with some usage constraints, right? Or some usage control that you want to stay under control, at least when it comes to data as an economic asset, that you can say out of your company, okay, my data has a certain value, and if I share it with someone, there have to be either an added value for my company as well, or I can earn money with this. I think this is understood, and you nicely sketched this in your first input. So thank you very much. And by the way, I forgot this in my introduction, dear participants. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A functionality. I have always a look into the chat, and then we can maybe distribute the questions to the panel. Okay, now that we have this initial, let's say, playing field on data sharing and on a data sharing strategy described by Nadia Scandelli, it's a pleasure to well, bring you, Davide, into the discussion, because engineering is a big IT company and IT service provider, and who else than you should know how to answer these questions which Nadia just displayed. And therefore, maybe please go ahead, introduce yourself, what you are doing in engineering, what engineering is doing, and maybe also what would be your initial remark on this topic of sovereign data sharing. This is of interest. Davide, please.
Sure, thank you very much, Thorsten. I hope you can see my cover slides and you can hear me properly. Thank you very much for the invitation. Just a couple of words about myself. My name is Davide dalle Carbonare, as already kindly introduced by Thorsten. I work in engineering in the R&D department, where I play the role of business developer and senior researcher. So my career is mostly focused on the R&D side, that is, of course, inside the company to support the business units that we have on the different markets. Just a quick snapshot to engineering, but this is not to go through all the figures. It's more about to contextualize engineering in the digital value chain. So we are a software maker. We are a system integrator. That's actually the most used label for engineering. And we work in the digital platform market. And when it comes to the digital platform concept, it's useless to say that the main part of that is represented by data and the use of data in the different business processes that are at the core of all our customers. I'm happy to link with the many things that already Nadia spot in her presentation, and I was just starting by the one of the assumptions that we are doing, that today we hear frequently how data is compared to a new currency in the emerging data economy. But as it usually happens with disruptive changes, there is also a number of challenges to be addressed in order to take out the most of the benefits of that new disruptive changes. I reported here some complementary aspects compared to those to the technical challenges reported before, and the starting bottom up in this case. I take also the last comment from you, Thorsten, about the value of data. It's really difficult in many cases to understand which is the hidden value that may rely in the huge, incredible amount of data that someone is able to collect from one side, while we see at the same time that others are still in the early stages. So they may not be collecting data at all in some cases. But for those that are doing that, we see also some risk. They perceive the risk to lose the control of the data. So as you said, they might fear that some secrets may be hidden in data they might be sharing with others. Other known particularly technical challenges that we may face are also represented by legal and ethical frameworks that from maybe the European Commission should help to structure the market. Again, when it comes also to the adoption, one thing that is very, very needed is the availability of best practices and standards supporting them, but especially some cases that help to understand the real benefit to implement processes focused on data collection, data management, but also data sharing in order to involve stakeholders that are outside the organization. So these are probably, from the business perspective, the two scenarios that we can address. The one inside the organizations that is mostly consolidated so far, and move to the one between organizations. In order to solve or to address the challenges, we are in alignment with what we are also contributing to define inside the Big Data Value Association. That is the vision towards the data sharing to the European governed data sharing spaces, and to point really at the center of the topic, as you can see in the diagram, the wheel diagram of the right side. Trust in the very center, at the very center of this disruptive process. Trust should be then supported by a number of pillars that have to be developed appropriately, that needs to collaborate and be integrated among one and the other. So of course, starting from data, but of course, governance, as I mentioned, from European may be very helpful on that. People is key, and skill and reskilling of the people is very much at the core of supporting these digital transitions for organizations, and support organization from the business perspective and from their internal organization perspective, and technology as a cross enablers to support all the others to make it happen. Inside this paper in BDVA, we also try to foresee which may be the path along the next years, and we identified as a urgent aspect the fact of convergence among different initiatives we see around Europe. Many actors, many associations discussing about data spaces. So it would be beneficial for everyone to create sorry, a convergence on that, of course, supported by the European strategy. What we do in regards to that is to start from challenges and needs, and we identified in BDVA the appropriate environment to collect those. We based our development on the standards and the interoperability designs, the reference architecture defined by IDSA. And thanks to our collaboration in Fiverr, we also develop solutions, enablers, the building blocks that can be combined together to solve challenges and to address the market opportunities that comes at the end of this journey. Also leveraging on what Gaia X is now pushing for, so appropriate infrastructure able to scale up and to fulfill the needs of computation, storage, network, everything that might be seen soon, hopefully, as a commodity to support the data spaces endeavor for all the customers that at the end has very pragmatical and practical and specific needs. And this is what we do with the Digital Factory Alliance, for example. So let's say in a nutshell, but still with many details, we see a number of benefits for a large system integrators like we are in approaching the data space path and providing and creating new business opportunities, of course, being able to enrich even more the ecosystem we work on, thanks to synergies and relationships, and to enrich the portfolio of solutions that we are able to bring to the market and to our customers in order to reply to their needs and to help them to achieve the proper journey towards their digital transition and approach to the data sharing aspects that the most important part here. So these are actually my few insights to the discussion today, and I hope they may be useful for the dialogue.
Thank you, Davide. Yes, of course, they are useful, and I think it's also a good mixture hooking into the challenges and opportunities Nadia just figured out, but also the way and the sources, for instance, where you as engineering are contributing in the different associations. And I liked especially the 5 big brands, so to say, starting from BDVA, IDSA over Gaia X to the Fiverr and Digital Factory Alliance, because this gives a little bit also an overview for the audience. Where are the communities where these topics are discussed in detail? And I mean, I know that all these initiatives have their own, let's say, working groups, communities, open source initiatives, and of course it is a lot of work, but I think it is worthwhile, because it's I mean, no question that for each company it is a must to prepare for this near future, I would say. This is definitely true. So thank you, Davide, for this first insights. And now I want to hand over to Alberto. And I think this is especially of interest because Avio Aero is, so to say, a potential user of all these technologies, of all these schemes. And on the other hand side, Alberto, I think you can also comment with some insights on to the challenges which are just as described by Nadia and Davide. So please, I want to hand over to you. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit what Avio Aero is doing, and then maybe some insights on this topic of data sharing strategies.
Yeah, thanks, Thorsten. Thanks for having me. Once again, my name is Alberto. I'm from Avio Aero. We are a GE Aviation business, and I'm the engineering digital team leader at Avio. So that means that I'm part of the information technology organization, but my main internal customer is the engineering team at Avio. So we're serving them in terms of technical application and services that are used by the engineering team. But I'm also acting as the focal point for the R&D initiatives in the digital space and for the external funding opportunities and activities. So that's why I got in touch with the IDSA community, and thanks again to engineering to having created the connection. And yeah, I guess today I would like to give you an overview of the barriers and opportunities, right? When it comes to that, I think we are in such a position where we can definitely have something to tell. We're plenty of barriers and opportunities. The aerospace and defense sector, the industry in which we are operating, is very much regulated, and there's a high content of IP that has to be protected. So there's a lot going on, and I'm going to explain a little bit which is our vision. Can you guys see my slide? Not sure
yes,
if
we
you
see it, but not
okay.
in presentation mode. So if you switch, yes, now we see it in presentation mode.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So I will not spend too much time presenting Avio, just because Avio Aero, because we just to save time for the dialogue. I just want to let you know that we are, just to give you an idea of the company we are, it's 5,500 people across Europe and different plants in Italy and Poland. We design and manufacture jet engines. The entire jet engine, some modules, but anyway, pretty much 80% of the airliners flying around the world are actually using components or engine designed and manufactured by Avio. So chances are that we got in touch earlier on indirectly if you've been flying around in the past. And also I would like to share with you that Avio Aero, before the acquisition by GE Aviation, was founded in 1908. So we're one of the oldest companies in Italy. And if you think that the Wright brothers flew for the first time in 1903, back then we were kind of a small startup trying to catch up with this new incredible technology that was allowing people to fly around, even if that time they're pretty much hopping and jumping, not really flying. So having said that, just to set the background, let me jump to the first slide, data management from our perspective. So this is going to be kind of the perspective of a newbie that is stepping into this domain. We're really at the beginning, so it's not easy to pitch out after Davide and Nadia that have so much expertise in this space. But the scenario we're looking at from our point of view is that we're kind of in the middle of something, right? We're kind of in a transition phase where we're about to start designing a new generation of engines, of aero engines, but the new generation of aero engine will ask for an unprecedented data sharing need. So it's something that it cannot be compared with what we used to do some years ago. And to put that in perspective, just keep in mind that the product life cycle of our components, of what we design and manufacture, is very long. So an aircraft and the engine running on that aircraft can actually have a very long life, a very long life cycle as well. So from one new product to another one, many things happen in between, right? And from an industry standpoint, there's kind of an innovation pace related to the technology that we're putting into the engine, but there's also an innovation pace that is coming from the digital aspect of the story. So if you think about 10 years ago, from a digital standpoint, our world was completely different, right? So my dad was not using Facebook, for example. He was not using WhatsApp. We were not used to do everything on our mobile maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So the world and the way it's digitalized is really changing. Also, the way we're designing and manufacturing the new generation of engines, and it's not only a matter of technology from an engineering standpoint, but also from a digital standpoint. So we're going to we have the business asking for more and more data to be shared. So they're generating more data way more than it used to be 5 years ago, only 5 years ago. And the need for sharing data across the entire value chain is increasing as well, and it's always more demanding in terms of speed and in terms of volumes as well. So we're kind of in a situation where we do understand that there's something different that has to be done. We cannot approach the problem the same way we used to design and manufacture things 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago. Okay. So it's really kind of that situation where you know that you need to start looking at things from a different perspective. And from this point of view, data spaces seem to be a very good option. So that's why we're so interested in this topic. And if I move to the next one, I can basically, we try to provide you kind of the landscape in which we're moving, right? So if you look at the players that are actually part of the extended value chain, if you want to define that in that way, at the type of data that have to be shared and the different types of use that we have to, how we want to consume, how we want to leverage that data, well, that's really opening up a complete new landscape. So many. Can you guys still see my screen? I got just a weird message.
Yes, yeah. We can see it.
Okay, sorry, some notifications here from another platform. So back to the players. I think that's very interesting because it's somehow showing. Oh, I think you lost the. Yeah, it should be okay now. So different players, suppliers, partners, competitors, customers. Yeah, I still see flipping the presentation. I hope it's okay. Universities, for example, private research centers. There's really a lot going on. Let me see if I can apologize for that. Some reason. Okay, not sure what happened. So many different players that want to get data and want to share data as well, and we have to work with them. That's mandatory to get to the end of the project, to deliver what we are trying to do. So types of data, I mean, from this slide, you actually see, I don't want to go through all of them, but you can see that we are in an industry that is putting ourselves in the position of being a very good use case provider. So we can generate use cases and data in many different areas, in many different fields. It can be about the product itself, the engine performance, the product configuration, CAE, so FEM analysis. It could be in the IoT space, for example, from the perspective of the product, but also from the perspective of shop floor machines and devices that are running in our shop floors. So that's really pretty much everything you can dream of in terms of data sharing. And it can be consumed in many different ways by different players, by different personas, if you will. Okay, so a very complicated environment, many opportunities clearly, but a lot of constraints and barriers. And that brings me to the last slide, that is trying to sum up the challenges that we're seeing and why we're starting to understand that we need to change from a cultural standpoint as well. We have to change the paradigm. We have to change the way we're looking at this problem. Just to name a few of the challenges, cybersecurity, first off. Cybersecurity has become paramount for us. And I think I can transparently say that it was not like that 5 years ago, right? It's really at the center of every activity that we undertake. And there's a lot of effort that we're putting in every single day of our operations, of our daily job, to make sure that our company is secure. So that's really important. So when someone is asking me, how can I share data with a supplier? First off, it has to be safe. It has to be secure, okay? Then this is something that is much more specific for the aerospace industry, but I think if there's someone from healthcare joining or from other sectors, I think they will empathize with me. And it's what what's around the international trade compliance. So making sure that I'm sharing data, being respectful of rules and policies. I'm not exporting control technology without permission. I have the right licenses in place. So even sharing something that is sitting in Italy with someone else that is sitting in France, there might be an uncontrolled export of information. So we have to be very granular and very very careful from that standpoint, and that's tightly connected to the IP protection, right? Because that's also a data segregation requirement that has to be ingrained in every single aspect of the data sharing. Then there's something that is specific to our sector, and it's something that I like, but it's definitely a challenge. Is what is called co-petition. So that means that in some cases we're competing with other companies, but in some other cases we're working alongside with them. So we're best friends for some projects, but not for others. So how can I make sure that I'm sharing data that way, being respectful of the IP, of the trade compliance, and also not releasing intellectual property and competitive advantage to them. So that's very tricky. And then, as I was saying before, growth of volume and velocity and the speed of data that is generated, that's unprecedented, and it's really putting our legacy systems under pressure. And we're actually, I think we're really missing technical solutions that are good enough for our engineers and for our manufacturing engineers. So in this scenario, I think the main statement here is that data governance or data sovereignty, or you can use whatever expression it's more appropriate for the domain you're in, but that's going to be very important. That's going to be the cornerstone. I think there's another one that is not written here, that is understanding that you need a framework. You need something that is guiding you through the development of a solution that is not doing what Nadia pointed out at the beginning. So I don't need to develop a solution that is connecting point to entities to share data, respecting those requirements. I need to design solutions that are enabling the sharing across a data space. So in a different way, it's very different. It's not myself, I have to share data with Davide. It's myself, I have to share data with potentially everyone, respecting some specific requirements. So that's our point of view. I hope it was helpful to provide some some details on how this topic looks like from the perspective of an aerospace industry player. And I would hand it back to you, Thorsten. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Alberto. And I think well, this was perfectly nice and also fitting very much to the already explained topics. And I think you made it crystal clear. Sharing data between one and another company is easy. We did this for the last decade. But now thinking and transferring these data sharing concepts into data ecosystems, where you maybe do not even know the other entity with whom you are sharing data, but nevertheless, you have to trust in the sharing mechanisms. I think this is the overall challenge, and perfectly was described by you, Alberto. So thank you for this. I want to bring out of your challenges one question into the dialogue, and maybe Davide, you could try to first answer it, because I found some hint in your presentation, in your statement. You had somewhere in your overview the European values, the data values, and I think this has something to do with the challenge Alberto just phrased, because what are these values? From our understanding, it's, for instance, about findable and transparency. Is this what you meant with the European values? And is this the way how solutions which could be developed for the future requirements would answer to these challenges Alberto just mentioned?
Sure, absolutely. From the European perspective, you see from one side they are creating also a number of publications of communications, starting from example the AI regulation, the Data Governance Act. They are all going towards the direction to try to define the way to do things properly. So system integrators like us should take those documents and translate in technical enablers that will be then tested by and taken up by customers to pilot things. I'm not expecting a big change from one day to another. I believe definitely it will be an iterative process. As Alberto said, they have already available a huge amount of data. They are eager to take out the benefit from that, but they need to play carefully. Security is very important. Be sure that people that have access to those data are allowed to do that for that specific purpose. I like very much to speak about knowledge sharing. It's all about data, but I'm not share my raw data. I enable you to access my data repository, to run the analytics and get the information you need. This is something that can look also to exercises like federated machine learning, these kind of things, when you can put different actors together and for the benefit of everyone, like the competition example mentioned by Alberto. You can figure out business cases where competitors are in the position to share non-core data, probably, but for their own benefits. They can put those data together and get back improved services from service providers, like, for example, predictive maintenance of their systems, something like that. That can be really support their production processes.
Yeah. If I can add, okay. Davide and Thorsten, I think that's the point. That's the point. To transfer to company and SMEs, that is not a technical problem. Let's say the solutions are there. The point to unlock the situation is to make them understand that it's a business question. Which is your business strategy? And then the data comes with the business strategy. So what you want to do? Do you want to make your production line perform better? Do you want to improve your customer service? Do you want to get a 360-degree understanding of your customer? Then after that, you have put on the table your business pain, your business strategy. I want to do this. Then the data strategy should be aligned with this, and then finding all the technical tools that, of course, standards, because we know we need standards for this. We need standards to ensure that the usage, the data sovereignty, the IP, because otherwise what we are talking about. But that's to convince company, it's necessary to let them understand it is not a technical question, it's a business question. What do you want to do with your business? And then data can help you.
Yeah, I understand. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. Maybe staying a little bit in your ecosystem. I know that Cefriel is since years while running and facilitating projects, applied research projects. What, from your perspective, or maybe from your experience, would be a use case where you say, okay, this is not only in the research mode, but maybe already close to the market? Are there any use cases which are very soon being commercialized when it comes to these sovereign data sharing ecosystems? This would be of interest maybe for everyone.
Yeah, I think that there are, let's say, 2 points. One is the closed supply chain. Let's say in the closed supply chain, since there is, let's say, this let's say, people don't want to share to I don't know who my data. I think that it will be easier for company to create closed data space for their supply chain. That will be easier for them, also for the business, for all the legal stuff and everything. I know with who I'm sharing my data. So to create an ecosystem, a data space that is closer, and there is a trust. There is a predefined trust with all the people Okay, and this will facilitate really the creation of services within this ecosystem. So for example, we are creating a data space at the moment that will be on the market at the end of the year with Whirlpool, with Sonai in Portugal, in Italy, exactly for the sharing of data within their supply chain, for predictive maintenance, for business leads, for different, let's say, business needs, let's say, starting from that, but that one of the requirements for them is that we don't want a data marketplace. I need to understand who will use my data and why, and which are the benefits for all the stakeholders on the table. And this could be a solution, because supply chains are really complex. There are a lot of suppliers that are exchanging data on paper with different standards and formats and whatever, and just asking company if we can standardize and organize a system to share with you, with all your suppliers, for example, your needs. I'm searching for a supplier that does this operation for next week. So like a supply chain as a service, let's say, that's another thing on which we are working. How we can create a supply chain as a service data space for company within their supply chain to easily define which are the suppliers for my order, for my production, for tomorrow. This will be an answer for their business needs and business operation. They will really improve the efficiency of their operation, removing a lot of paper for the environment and so on. And really, but that's not the driver. The driver is improving the efficiency of this operation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So let us try to to bring in the audience by having a look to the two questions which have been raised. So there's one, and I'm not sure if Nadia or Alberto can answer it, and it refers to the standardization topic. So the question is from Kjell Bengtsson. Thank you, Kjell, for asking this. You mentioned the trade-off for standardization. Can you highlight how you want to share manufacturing data like CAD or PLM or IoT data, where today 80% of such data exchange processes used ISO 1033 step? How will standards like these ISO standards be reused in your data space architecture? I don't know, Nadia, do you want to start, or is it Alberto? I don't know exactly.
I know just a little bit about the standard, because CAD, I think that Alberto maybe is a deeper understanding of the standard. But the point is that it's not a matter, this standard that is in the question step has been created for the exchange of product model data. So for the exchange of data, let's say that was for the purpose of standardizing the format of the data, not the exchange model. Okay, so I think that the two things can coexist easily, because let's say the data that we exchange could be in the step format, okay, but using an IDSA data space, based on data space, we can ensure also the IP, the data sovereignty, and the security, that the step standard is not, let's say, this is an interoperability standard that's allow the sharing of data, but not the infrastructure. So I think that are two different things that can easily coexist.
Thank you, Nadia. Alberto, anything to add on this?
No, I agree. And I think Nadia pointed out that it's maybe on two different levels. I will say that for the specific question on the CAD format, for example, that you're using to exchange geometrical data, as long as you're using an open format that is not, locking in with a specific vendor, I think that's fine. It's really up to the requirement that you have for the specific data exchange. For example, do I need to share data for meshing, or do I need to share data because I have to generate part programs and tool, chip removal operations? So from the CAM environment, for example, that might change, and you might understand that maybe that format is not the right one. Do I need to be associative with the geometry? If I get a new version of that file, do I need to somehow know the history of that model so that I can not have to start over, defining the meshing or the additional modeling that I'm performing, or the generation of part programs? So that's really up to the specific technical requirements. But if we step up, sorry for the step up from the step format, I would say that this is opening up another interesting question. That is, how do I standardize the data per se? So I mean, even if you look at data extract, let's take a shop floor machine, for example. I'm exposing data coming from a numerical control or from the PLC running on that machine. That is very specific to that machine, to that numerical control, to that PLC. So that information, let's suppose that is a time series, it has to be somehow harmonized with the same kind of information that is coming from another device that is providing maybe, I don't know, let's say that is a vibration, it's an acceleration, or it's a temperature. How can I merge information that have the same content from a semantic standpoint, but they're completely different in the way they're coming? Okay, so and that's true for every kind of data you can think of. That requires to aggregate data somehow, to model the way data is generated and to relate that to the business object you're looking at. So, and that's what we define. I mean, and I'm talking about Avio internally. I'm not sure if it's the right way to define that outside, but that's what we call a data model. So I have to understand which is the business object that I'm looking at and which are the attributes or the metadata that are related to that attributes and metadata that are related to that object. So having that structure, then I can convert the information. So if my business object is a milling machine, I will have a set of attributes, a set of values, let me say parameters that I know that they are specific to that kind of business object. And I'm expecting the overall data model to take into account that, so that I have the right cell where I would put the data coming from the whatever PLC that it's running wherever, right? So that layer of abstraction, if you will, it's anyway very important. Otherwise you would and if you look at that, it's what the step format is doing for CAD. It's just providing a standard way to look at that object, right?
Yep. Okay.
If I may take it just
yes, please.
From that, I absolutely believe that one of the key aspects of the entire stack is exactly what you said. You mentioned a couple of keywords during your comments, and one is definitely the data models. I would say that I'm not expecting that much that machine producers are able by default to produce or to be all aligned to the same format, because of, as you said, time is very long for them to embrace changes. But what may be done is to create mapping in between. It's really important, as you said, to converge and to harmonize information on data models for different reasons. And probably the easiest one to think of is to say, when you start from your data models and you collect data along that way, you free up two very nice things. One is that you can exchange the devices that you have in your southbound. So if today you are collecting from a sensor and tomorrow you will move to another one, you just adapt this mapping as long as this new sensor is providing the same data as the others. You just need to convert them. But once you are able to feed the same data models, let's say you are done. On the other side, when you build your analytics services and all probably your new business models on top of those data models, everything can change behind, but you can keep the work you have done in terms of analytics and business as it is. You may also replicate that. You can make it evolve and be applied in different domains, for example. So these are very, very important things. And without taking into account that most of the cost related to a data processing project is exactly focused on data collection, clearing, preparing, and be sure that the quality of data used is appropriate to the expected results.
Yeah, thank you, Davide, for this important comments, and this is of course, very, very important. So let us have a look to the second question. And as we are running out of time, I'm very happy that there's already someone, it was Angelo, the colleague of Davide, who has already answered it in the chat. So the question is about how to really start when there is a small ecosystem within a region consisting of different actors in the data value chain, how then to start well, thinking about setting up data spaces for sovereign data sharing. And I think Angelo pointed to the right sources, so thank you for this. And yeah, this is about a paper which was recently published out of one of the projects where, for instance, IDSA, but also engineering are participating. The project is called OpenDI, and we just published a position paper with the title Design Principles for Data Spaces. You can find in the chat the link to this paper. It's more than 100 pages, and there a lot of topics are explained, and also the first, well, building bricks, so to say, what could be done when starting with this data spaces creation. I think there's one topic which is important when we are answering these questions or having a look into this paper. It is, there are many data spaces to converge and to be established in the future. And I think the European Commission always phrases it in singular, but it should be more plural, because there will be many data spaces, smaller ones, bigger ones, domain-specific data spaces, sector-specific data spaces. But I think what the quintessence will be on a top level, we have to make sure that all these data spaces are somehow interoperable and delivering the same trust mechanisms. And this is the challenge, because otherwise the data spaces will be the silos of the future, I fear. And therefore, I think on this top level, the generic design principles should be the same. And Davide, maybe you want to link this to BDVA again, because I think you also published a paper on data spaces. Maybe you just want to describe what one could find in this BDVA paper on data spaces.
Yes, sure. This is very briefly some of the things that I reported in one of my initial slides, the one on the vision, actually is the paper describing the wheel diagram, the one with the trust in the middle, in order to try to make a bit of order in looking at which are the relevant stakeholders that will be the most impacted or the involved to create trust in these data sharing spaces, how we call in BDVA. And in addition to that, we also sketched that diagram to show how in the next years we will be how things may evolve over years in terms of standardization, experimentation, deployment. I was mentioning the convergence as the most urgent part, but after that we need experimentation in order to demonstrate and create awareness, create those best practices that I was also mentioning, and create and start building on that the idea that everything should be probably driven by business objectives, thanks to technical enablers, but following fair principles and in respect to all the European guidelines that has been published so far.
Perfect. Thank you, Davide. So it's really a pity, but there are already 60 minutes over, so we are already at the end of our data spaces dialogue. But I think let me just finish with for 2 or 3 more minutes, because I think what we have seen also in the chat is that there is a community on this specific topics. And please, dear participants, if you feel to deepen the discussion, reach out to the panelists. Here you will find the contact details easily in the community, whether it is on the requirements and on the challenges more from a company perspective in manufacturing, then it is Alberto. When it is more on an engineering topic like IT consulting, IT service providing, then it is Davide. And if it is more on applied research about innovation support, then I think Nadia can easily help out. So please take the opportunity and talk to the colleagues, talk to the experts. This is, of course, also one positive result out of these dialogues, that we are enhancing the community and stimulating the discussion. The last topic I want to mention is that there are several other occasions upcoming where a deeper look and more detailed discussions is possible. This is first of all the IDSA summit, June 22 and June 23 this year. So please have a look to the agenda, register yourself. It is free to participate, and I think there are very, very interesting sessions in really detailed discussions on various aspects which have been touched in the today's dialogue. So please have a look. And yes, well, for me, it remains only to say thank you very much to Nadia, Davide, and Alberto. Thank you that you joined this dialogue today. As always, we had little time to really discuss, but I think it was a very good and very motivating exchange with, well, a lot of future possibilities to talk further. Thank you very much, and I wish all of you a very good day and a very good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
And have a good
Bye-bye.
space.